Welcome back to Talking Sports with Brandon. This is the Week 8 preview video. This is a week where I need to hit big on my 5 picks. I talked about it in the last episode. If you haven't watched that, check it out. It should be 2 videos ago. And then the one in between is my Cowboys recap video from Week 7. So definitely check that one out as well. But if you missed what I said in the recap video of Week 7, where I talked about my 5 picks. I didn't have a good week last week, still under 500. So just to say it again, but my overall record is 15, 19, and 1. So we need a big week. We got to go at least 3-2, and I'm thinking 4-1 to pick up 3 games right there. If I pick up 3 games, I'm only 1 game back. Definitely feel a lot better, and then I'll have more confidence going forward in the future. So we'll start with the 5 picks. There may be another game or two I do want to just touch on, but first game, Cardinals, Vikings, plus 3.5 Arizona is what I have. And this one, the Vikings are a better team than the Cardinals, but and you know how I feel about the Cardinals, but I feel like this is almost, I wouldn't say a trap game because the Cardinals aren't like a bad team. They're not like one of the worst teams in the league because obviously they do have some talent on either side of the ball. And with a guy like Kyler Murray, you can win games that you probably didn't think you could win, i.e. the Raiders game. But I think in this one, it's like, the Vikings are coming off a bye. Cardinals, they played last Thursday night, so it's almost kind of like they have a couple extra days of rest as well. And the big thing about last week's game for the Cardinals was that DeAndre Hopkins came back for that game. So with him back in that lineup, and now the thing that really hurts them is that Hollywood Brown got injured. As soon as Hopkins comes back, Hollywood Brown got injured. So if they had them two, you'd actually feel pretty good about their offensive weapons with them two and Rondale Moore. James Conner is still injured, but when he would come back, him and Eno Benjamin, that's a pretty decent backfield for what it is. And obviously their offensive line's a question. They have a lot of injuries, but if they had their full weapons available, their offense isn't bad. I think the play calling and the offensive line is what's kind of bringing them down. The defense hasn't been terrible. It's not a good defense, but it's also not bad. They can, call some turnovers and they can make some plays. But in this game, I kind of like the Cardinals. I think that I think they probably will win this game. Now, again, it's plus 3.5, so they could lose by 3 points or less and still cover for me. But I actually kind of see the Cardinals pulling off, an upset. I think it would be an upset. Minnesota's 5-1. They're a team where they definitely play down to their competition. The Bears game, the Lions game, they had to come back in both those games or had to stave off a comeback. So I think that they're very vulnerable to bad teams. They kind of they got you down early and then they let you back in the game. Also the Dolphins game. I mean, they were playing with, Skylar Thompson in that game and Teddy Bridgewater, and they let them come back and almost, make it a 1-score game and possibly even tie the game. So I think that they have kind of that knack of just letting bad teams hang in to the point where if you do make a mistake on offense and you have a turnover, a fumble, something that happens late in that game, it could really come back and haunt you. And then obviously at that point, it's just up to the other team to score to, put them over the top. But I kind of see that happening in this game. I think that the Vikings may jump out to an early lead. They might be, kind of controlling this game, but the Cardinals will keep staying in it. And at some point towards the end of the game, they're going to have a chance to tie the game or take the lead. So I do see that happening. If anything, it could maybe be a backdoor cover, down 10, get a late touchdown, it's a 3-point game. So I do kind of like this and how it's looking right now. But the one worrisome thing about the Cardinals is that they have a tough time scoring touchdowns. And I know they put up 40 points last week, but, Dalton threw 3 or 4 picks, 2 were for pick sixes. They kind of get gifted a couple touchdowns there. And I just think that with Hopkins fully back now, because even then it was still a short week when he was coming back, first game back. I think now with some more practice, some more reps, some game reps that he had a big game too. I think he had like 10 catches or 9 catches for like 100 yards or something. So he's clearly, obviously, he's still a top whatever receiver in the league that he is, but they want him to get the ball. And that's what they were missing. Even though Hollywood Brown was playing really well, he's obviously not the same receiver that DeAndre Hopkins is. So to have like that guy on your team who's playing, it means a lot because even if he's not getting the ball every time, he's, the rolling coverage over to him. They may have a safety over the top. It could leave someone open for down the field shots, or you can go, the flat's probably a little bit more open as well. So it can kind of just change how you play offensively. And I think that's kind of key for them. So, yeah, that's my first game. Cardinals +3 against Minnesota. And that would be a good way to start the week off because that's, it's not a crazy pick. It's not like a super underdog pick, but at the same time, the Vikings are better than the Cardinals, but I think that they can hang in there. So game 2, Raiders, Saints. I have Raiders -1.5. The Saints are still missing a lot of guys. Michael Thomas isn't playing. Jarvis Landry's not playing. I think maybe even a couple other guys aren't playing for them. So they're still dealing with injuries. I'm pretty sure Dalton is starting for them again. So I think that for the Raiders here, they're coming off, a good win against the Texans, a win that they needed. You play a bad team at home. You got to win that game. You gotta just kind of show that you are the better team. They are the more talented team, no doubt. Obviously, that defense is a question. Besides Max Crosby, there's no one else on that defense who's really doing anything. So they need to rather force turnovers or, Chandler Jones is going to have to get more involved. And my thoughts on Chandler Jones. So I think that could possibly be a concern defensively. It's really only Kamara and I guess Olave you have to worry about for the Saints offensively right now. But I think this Raiders offense is starting to find its form. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been incredible the last 3 weeks. The last 3 games that he's played, they've had a bye in that time. He's gone over, I think, 120 every single game. He had 3 touchdowns. I think he's like 6 touchdowns in this 3-game span. So they're running the ball, which is really they haven't really had that since. I mean, you could probably say Darren McFadden, probably what was it, 12 years ago. They haven't really been able to run the ball like this. And Jacobs has always been a guy where he is a good running back. He's not like an elite running back, but he's always good. But to put up performances like this is definitely something we haven't seen from him and something we haven't seen from that offensive line. They've always had like good offensive lines, but it's always been better in pass block than run block. And they've always kind of found themselves as being more of a passing team. But I think if they could split kind of the rushes to the throws, I think that really helps their team out because they have wide receivers who can get open in Adams, Renfro, Waller. Matt Collins has been really good for them as well. So if you can use that play action and you can bring a guy down in the box to possibly give a Devontae a one-on-one, or even if he's going to get doubled, but a guy's in the box as well, or they're rolling coverage at least over to him, it's going to open the field more for Derek Carr and for the other receivers. So, the Saints always have a good game plan defensively and always kind of know what they're doing, but I just think that they're the inferior team, and I think that the Raiders, for them, them being 2-4, they got to get things rolling. They got to go on a win streak. And I think with the Texans game, get that one out of the way, win that one. You move on to the Saints, a team that's injured and not playing great. You just got to keep winning games. And I think this would be a good game for them. Going to New Orleans, still a tough environment, no matter what the team looks like. And to get a win down there, I think would be big for them. So I got Raiders -1.5 over the Saints for my second game. For my third game, I got Dolphins at Lions. -4 Miami. Now, this is another game that I like. Dolphins, Tua came back last week, looked pretty good. I mean, for, missing, 3 games, and obviously having the serious injury with the concussion, but I thought he looked good. I thought that the offense, and the offense wasn't really that bad without him. It definitely failed in different aspects for them, but Mostert's been able to run the ball a little bit more when Tua went out because they were trying to get the ground game going and then work the passing game. So I think that with him kind of playing the way that he is, and we've seen this before from him in the past with the 49ers, he's just been injured these last couple of years, but he put up some big games with the 49ers. And Mike McDaniel obviously comes from San Francisco, that Kyle Shanahan type of offense. So I think if he can really run the ball like he is, that really helps that offense because that defense is a good defense. They cause turnovers. They make life very difficult for the opposing offense. And a team like Detroit, who will be at full strength, DeAndre Swift he practiced fully this week, so he's fully back for this game. It looks like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to play, so they do get their full supplement of weapons out there, but I still see Dolphins, but the Dolphins are the better team. I think that with the way that Detroit's defense, now maybe last week was a little bit of an outlier with the way that they played versus Dallas, but I think Miami, they obviously have Hill and Waddle, who are extremely explosive. I think they'll have big games in this one. I think Tua will look comfortable too. I think that, he'll be a little bit more. I mean, he was running the ball too last week, which I don't know if you really want that if you're Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. But the fact that he was showing that he's willing to do that after the serious injury that he had is at least a good sign that he's comfortable. It's not like he's a little timid and scared about being in the pocket and having guys coming after him. So that's a good sign in that sense. Now, do you really want him to keep running? Probably not. But the fact that he's showing that he's not scared to do it, I think is a good thing for them. And -4, I mean, I think that the Dolphins can cover that. I think, we saw them go out to that early lead last week against Pittsburgh, 13-0. They let them back in the game despite Kenny Pickett throwing 3 interceptions. So maybe that's a little concerning that the offense wasn't able to put more points up. It still is a Steelers defense that is good, but they're obviously still missing guys. TJ Watt's not playing. They can't really get to the quarterback that much without him. So maybe a little concerning there, but you're playing a much worse defense here in Detroit. I think as long as Miami's defense does what they need to do, and again, you're facing Jared Goff. He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to make dumb decisions. You can get to him. The offensive line's a little vulnerable as well. They should be able to control this game, and they should be able to win by more than 4. I would probably say they win by 7-10, and possibly even 14 at the most. So that's my third game. Fourth game, Giants at Seattle. I have Seahawks -3 in this one, and when looking at the games, I saw this one. It caught my eye at first, and I was like, should I really go with that? Because again, we know what I feel about the Giants. They're 6-1, but I don't think they're really a 6-1 team. I mean, I think there's other teams that are better than them that have worse records. And, they keep teams in games. I mean, every single one of their games has been close. I mean, it's one possession. It's them coming back in the fourth quarter, which I guess is a good sign. But if you're always coming back in the fourth quarter, that means you're losing the entire game, or at least a majority of the game, which means that you have to be perfect in that fourth quarter. Your defense has to make stops or cause turnovers, and your offense has to convert on third down. So that I feel like that can only last so long with a team that's not that talented. They have no receivers on that team. It's just Barkley and Jones making plays with their feet. So I think at some point that stops. I think going into Seattle with a Pete Carroll defense, it's not the best defense he's ever had, no doubt, but they play hard. They play tough. They run around and they get after guys. So I think, we saw last week they played, the Chargers with Justin Herbert. They were getting after him. I mean, they scored 23 points last week, the Chargers did. So I like Seattle in the way that they just fly around the field on defense. And you know what? That offense has looked pretty impressive. I'm not sure if DK Metcalf, he's questionable for this game. We'll see if he plays. I think he's going to. I'm not exactly sure. I can kind of look that up right now. But even if he doesn't, I mean, you have to be so ecstatic with how Kenneth Walker is playing. Heisman candidate out of Michigan State last year. Big runner. He's fast, but he finishes runs. He's tough. He goes after guys. He doesn't let guys tackle him. He basically tackles them, and he'll get an extra 5 yards, extra 10 yards. He'll just fight after for every single carry. So the way that they're running the rock right now is very impressive. It makes life way easier for Geno Smith. Even though he's played well in the season, he's a top 10 quarterback. And again, that's not up for debate. He's been a top 10 quarterback this season. And that was with some games where the running game wasn't amazing. But now that the running game is looking like this, the offensive line's playing way better. Charles Cross, that first-round pick for them, I think he was number 9 in the draft. He's been looking a lot better as well as the weeks go on. So I like the way that Seattle is moving. And, I picked them to be one of the worst teams in the league for this season. I think that if they went with Drew Lock, they would have been. But, obviously they're smarter. I didn't think that they were going to go with Drew Lock, but they definitely could not have foreseen Geno Smith playing like this. There's no way. They probably thought he'd be good, like decent, but not this good. I mean, he's been pretty incredible. I mean, he's 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, 1,700 yards, and he's been running the ball too. So they definitely did not see that. But -3 Seattle, it's obviously their home, so that's, it would basically be an even game if it was in a neutral site, but I like them. I think that they can win this game. And again, if they have the lead in the fourth quarter, they have the offense to beat a Giants team where they can control the clock. They could run it. If they need to throw it, Geno can do that. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are actually both game time decisions here. So we'll see if they play. It is an afternoon start, 4:25. I guess on the West Coast it's still a 1 o'clock game, so I guess it doesn't really matter for that. But we'll see. We'll know more, as Sunday, as the hours get closer to 4:25 on the East Coast. But I would assume that they play. I don't think I've seen anything that says they really wouldn't play. So to have those two guys out there definitely helps, no doubt. So I have Seattle -3 for this one, and for my last game, I have Packers at Bills. Bills -10.5. The last time I went with the Bills with a bigger spread, I think it was against the Steelers. It was 13 or 14, and they easily covered that. The only thing that scares me about this game, I don't even know if scare is the right word, but thing that could go wrong is that I already know, like, this is the game where the Packers figure it out, and they rather cover. I mean, I don't think they could beat the Bills even playing their best game, but they'll cover. Like, that's what's going to happen to me. Like, the one time where it's like, oh, the Packers, they've been awful these last couple of weeks. They have no offense. They can't move the ball. Rodgers is saying stuff to the media about if guys don't know what they're doing, they should just lose reps and not be playing. There's just a lot of stuff going on in that locker room and with that organization right now. So it still seems like they wouldn't play a great game Sunday night. But knowing me and knowing that I'm the one picking this game and I'm going with the Bills -10.5, I already know it's going to happen. So I hope it doesn't, because the Bills, Bills at home too. If the Bills are on the road, I would probably still pick the Bills. But if I'm at home, they're a different team at home. They're really good on the road, but at home they just don't lose. It's going to be cold in Buffalo Sunday night as well. Obviously, Green Bay, they know how cold it can be, but it's just something about the Bills at home. They play way better, and they're just a different team. They're a different level of team. So -10.5, I feel like this should be not comfortable, but the Bills should be able to win this game. The Packers, if they have any sense of moving the ball, and it's not like the Bills don't have a good defense. The Bills have a top 5 defense in the league. So I just don't see the Packers being able to as long as the Packers don't put up 20 points, this should be an easy cover in my opinion. And I don't think that they can put up 20 points. I think they would have to get lucky. Allen sometimes does turn the ball over. The Chiefs game, he didn't throw a pick, but they had that fumble near the in the red zone. Sometimes he'll throw a pick early in that game that could maybe give them a short field. But even then, if you give the Packers a short field right now, I think at anything they're getting a field goal, so it doesn't kill you. But no mistakes for the Bills offensively. I don't see how the Packers are scoring more than 20, and that should be a cover for the Bills. So those are my 5 games. I'll just say them again. So Cardinals at Vikings +3.5 Arizona, Raiders at Saints -1 Las Vegas, or -1.5 Las Vegas, Dolphins at Lions -4 Miami, Giants at Seahawks -3 Seattle, and then Packers at Bills -10.5 Buffalo. So those are my 5 picks for the week. I think a couple other games that are noteworthy, at least somewhat to talk about. I think Broncos Jaguars. I think that's the London game this week, so it'll be early Sunday morning. It's, Russell Wilson's playing in this game. The Jaguars in London, they always seem to play really well. I'm not exactly sure what their record is, but it always seems like they're playing well in London. And this year, they're obviously a better team than they've been in the past, so it should bode well for that. But that's gonna be an interesting game, because we'll see how Russell Wilson looks. We still know that Denver defense is really good, so can they force Lawrence to make mistakes? Can they force him into things that he doesn't want to do? We'll have to see. ETN's the guaranteed starter for them. They traded James Robinson. ETN had a great week last week, so it's always seemed like that was going to be the case, but with the way that Robinson was running the ball early and with ETN's fumble problems, it was definitely shaky, but it's obviously very clear now that he is that RB1 for them, and him and Lawrence obviously played at Clemson, so they have a lot of connection. And I think we'll see how that looks, because I think if they could really run the ball like that, it's gonna help that offense a lot. And they've been good at running the ball so far this season, but with ETN as that lead back, I think it might mean a little bit more. But yeah, it's really the Broncos that we're looking at, though. Can Russell Wilson, can they look like a competent offense? Can they move the ball? Can they do anything in the run game without Javonte Williams? I'm not sure. I don't think so. So that relies a lot more on the passing game. And Wilson has a hamstring injury, has a shoulder injury. He's got a lot of things going on with him right now. So we know he's not the same passer. There's no doubt about it. But Can he get the ball to Judy? Can he get the ball to Sutton and have them make plays? Yeah, it's going to be a lot to ask for. And I think at 9:30 when we see that, I wouldn't be surprised if you miss some of the game and you wake up and it's like a 10-6 game, maybe like in the third quarter. I really wouldn't be. But in terms of the sake of excitement for the game, I'd like to see a high-scoring game. But I kind of doubt it. Another game I just wanted to talk about was 49ers-Rams. So Niners, Deebo Samuel's not going to play in this game. So that's obviously a huge loss. He always goes big against the Rams, as we saw in the first game this season, where he had that, the 60-yard touchdown pass that he had, where he just made every guy miss on the field and just ran it for a touchdown. Niners dominated that game. So losing him is a huge loss for them. Now, McCaffrey will be fully ready to go now. He had had a full week of practice. Already played some in that Kansas City game as well. So he'll be full go, so that helps. But losing Deebo definitely hurts for them. And the Rams, they're coming off a bye. So we'll see what they look like. I mean, it's, are they going to look like a championship type team, or are they going to continue to look like this 500 team that can show some flashes, but then their defense will let them down, or their defense plays well and the offense can't move the ball at all? So they're just very up and down, very hit or miss. And this is the week to really show who you are, because you're coming off the bye. Guys who were maybe a little bit injured are now a little bit healthier, maybe coming back. They lost another guy in their offensive line, so their offensive line is definitely still very shaky. But you got the Niners here. Despite what Seattle's doing, you'd probably still say these are the two favorites for that division, and it's a big game. The Rams already lost the first game, so if they win this game, they're 4-3, and the Niners are 3-5, and they'd be tied in that tiebreaker. So that would definitely lean more heavily towards Rams winning that division, regardless of what Seattle does. Unless Seattle does win 10, 11 games this season, I guess it's possible. But this is the game to prove it. It's going to be a 4:25 game. It's the Fox game. It's going to be national TV. So this is where you got to prove which team you are. And I'd like to say they're that championship team, but I can't. I cannot say that right now. They can't really run the ball, and their offense is just throw to Cooper Kupp. Last year it worked because you had some other guys, like Odell played well down the stretch, and the running game was a little bit better, and the offensive line was healthy, and the defense was better. But this year, all those things got taken away. The defense isn't as good. There's no running game. The offensive line's completely beat up, and you have no secondary receiver to Cooper Kupp. So, and Stafford's not been that good either. But that's definitely one of the bigger games of the week, and that will probably, decide who will win the NFC West, in my opinion. If the Niners go to 3-5, that's a lot of work to get back up, and if the Rams are 4-3, you'd think that they'd be able to turn it around and at least maybe not win 12, 13 games. I mean, they couldn't even. They could barely even, at most they could win 14 games right now. But, if they win 10 to 11 games, I think that wins the division. But we'll see after Sunday. But those are the games. And then in terms of the games for the week, that's what I wanted to talk about. But I did talk about in my last episode that there was some injury news that I wanted to talk about. And it's now been confirmed. At that point, I guess it was still being reported on. But now it's fully confirmed. Jamar Chase for the Bengals, he's out 4 to 6 weeks with a hip injury. He had it 2 weeks ago against the Saints, played through it, played last week, had a big game against the Falcons. But then on, Wednesday or Thursday of this week, it was announced that he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a hip injury. So a team that was starting to find its offense and starting to find their groove, they're 4-3 now. Just lost, obviously, their best player in terms of weapon-wise. I guess maybe you could say Burrow's better, whatever, it doesn't matter. But Chase is obviously their best weapon that they have. So the fact that he's now gone for the next month is huge for them, because they were just starting to get into that groove that they'd found last year. And with him now gone, T. Higgins going to have to step up. Tyler Boyd as well. But I think they got to rely more on that running game. Mixon's not been the same guy. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the offensive line, if it's the play calling. I'm not sure what it is. But I think that they got to rely a little bit more on the run. I think they should have done that anyways, because it takes pressure off Burrow and the offensive line and pass block. But I think now more than ever, without Jamar Chase, a top whatever receiver you want to say, top 7 at the worst, you really got to do more running plays. And I think that Mixon's the guy who could do it. I mean, he had what, 1,200 yards last year or 1,100 yards with like 10 touchdowns. You know, he's been a productive guy in the league. So I'm not exactly sure why it's not clicking so far this season. But if there was ever a time to do it, it was right now. And they play the Browns Monday night. So Browns team that's scuffling. They're really struggling right now with figuring out what they are and who they are. And that'll be a good game, I think, Monday night. The Browns are, I think, 3-4, or they're 2-4, 2-5. Yeah, so it's a must-win for the Browns. It's not a must-win for the Bengals, but it'll be a very good win to prove that, just because Chase went down doesn't mean that our team just collapses now. So that would be a good game. It's the last game of the week as well. Halloween night is too, so that'll be fun. But that was like the big injury thing that happened this week. Nothing else crazy happened injury-wise across the league. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode, though. So again, I had my 5 picks, talked about a couple other games, some injury news as well. And then for next week's episodes, it's going to be the same thing, obviously. Going to be the recap video of Week 8, the Cowboys video, which will be the last one for about 2 weeks because the Cowboys have a bye after this game against the Bears. So it won't be an episode out for like 2 weeks, but then obviously when they play their first game back against Green Bay, there will be an episode. And then obviously later in the week, you'll see the preview video for Week 9. So we're just at like that halfway point. This is where, that's why the Rams-Niners game is a big game, because it's like halfway through the season now, and this is where you really show who you are. So for a lot of teams, it's big games this week to prove if you're really going to be a contender or you're just pretending. But we'll see what happens. I'm excited to talk about it in the recap video for early next week. And I'll see you then. So thank you for watching, and definitely check out other videos on this channel as well. Thank you.